Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Time for the ALDA Awards, the Avoid Like Death Awards. The worst, most horrible, pointless, useless, miserable waste of money releases in 2025, or at least 10 of them. There were far more than that, which I think are a blot on the wonderful legacy of classical music recording. But these really, really suck. And as usual, we have divided them up into categories, the famous scarves of shame of various types. First, we begin with, well, here it is, the white scarf of irredeemable chutzpah. We get comfortable here. Oh, there was so much irredeemable chutzpah this year. Really, it was just a chutzpah fest. Okay. You ready? Number one, Berlioz, Symphonie fantastique with Ravel's La Valse, the Orchestra de Paris. Yes, the wonderful Orchestra de Paris, which ought to know that music cold, especially under their current music director, who is it? Oh, yes, it's that guy, Klaus Mäkelä. Klaus Mäkelä, who, listen, everybody blows the Symphonie fantastique. It's a very difficult piece to pull off. There are many, many more awful recordings than there are great ones. And you would think that somebody who is sort of like young and fresh and kind of mindless would just do a fantastic job. You just rip into it and let it go. But no. That's not what happened. Mäkelä, well, he may have thought he had ideas. I don't know. But whatever it was, he totally lacks the experience, the savvy, the passion, the intensity to carry off Berlioz's romantic masterpiece. God, what a bore that performance was. So that really stank. And definitely it took a lot of chutzpah for a young conductor, really untested conductor, I mean, in the wider scheme of things, to try and make a statement with that work. That was just stupid. Then we've got the Ravel piano concertos, because it was the Ravel year, with Seong-Jin Cho piano, the Boston Symphony, and Andris Nelson's conducting. Well, let's face it. Here was another incident. Well, Cho did all the Ravel piano music, and some of it very well. It was a mixed bag, but some of it was very good. But in the piano concertos, he was totally out of his depth, completely. You know, it was a conventional performance in the worst sense. You know, when it got quiet, it went slow. When it got loud, it went fast. It had absolutely nothing original or fresh to say about the music. It was quotidien, as they say in French. Just humdrum, uninteresting and predictable and just the epitome of pointless mediocrity. It really was. It was just totally uninteresting. And third, Wagner, The Ring Odyssey. You see, the more pretentious the title, that covers you and you have absolutely nothing to say in the music. It's actually an interesting thing. It's like, the statement in advertising is if you have nothing to say about the product, then you sing it. Come up with a jingle because there's nothing worth saying. Well, in music, where you're already singing it, come up with a title. That's what you do. You come up with something that sounds sort of, quasi-mythical and pretentious, like Odyssey, The Ring Odyssey, and then do absolutely nothing with the music. I mean, here we've got the Orchestra Nationale Bordeaux, Acquitaine, some ordinary soloists, and Joseph Swenson conducting. Joseph Swenson's a good conductor. But why on earth do another one of those, quasi-ring without words, although this had some words, things? What's the point, really, with a so-so provincial orchestra that was on Alpha, and Alpha's doing some great stuff, but as you will see, they appear here in this list twice, and that's kind of a shame. But there's a reason for it. Anyway, The Ring Odyssey was just the worst Wagner record in quite a long time, and totally, completely unnecessary. I mean, it takes such chutzpah to do this music that's been done by the greatest conductors and orchestras in the universe, and to play it with such total lack of charisma. So ordinary and boring. So that covers the white scarf of irredeemable chutzpah, I might add. Yes, the chutzpah is irredeemable. But now we turn to the scarlet scarf of shame. Here we go. Yeah, and here we've got 4 entrants. Oh, there was so much that was shameful this year. Unbelievable. Well, it was the Ravel year. And so there was lots of lousy Ravel, including a thing called Ravel 2025, or what was it called, 2025? I think I wrote 2005 here. Yeah, but it's 2025. Ravel 2025, that's it. And that was most of the orchestral music, not even all of it, featuring the French National Orchestra under Cristian Măcelaru, who I've had wonderful things to say, about whom I've had wonderful things to say. There, I did it right without ending a sentence with a preposition. This was so blah. I mean, it was a scandal that it was a French orchestra that knows this music cold, that has done, I mean, they've done so many wonderful things in this music. And to do it with such a total lack of interest, I mean, they absolutely sleepwalked through these performances. And the recording, the sonics was mediocre. The engineering was just terrible. It was scandalously unfortunate and not a tribute to Ravel at all, and really a shame. I mean, the scarlet scarf of shame. When you consider that these are, you've got a dynamic young conductor, you've got a French orchestra that should know the music cold, but sometimes familiarity breeds contempt. And that's what we got in this collection. That's for damn sure. Then we've got, Bruckner Symphony No. 0 and the Schumann Zwickauer Symphony with Le Concert des Nations under Jordi Savall on Alia Vox. Savall's just gone crazy. You know, he does these symposia. He brings these fresh young performers, who he proceeds to ruin and destroy for any future career they might have. And they all talk about, what a, spiritual experience it is, living together in a teepee or a tent or something, and fasting for weeks on end and rehearsing 65 times a day and having symposia and putting out a book this big that comes with each release. And then just giving the most abysmal, wrong-headed, tasteless performances of the music. It's just flat-footed, terrible sounding, with all of the period instrument dogma firmly in place to make the music sound as unidiomatic as possible. And here we've got Bruckner's least symphony. I mean, remember, this is the one he rejected that, everyone is now saying, well, we all know better than Bruckner. That's the crime. Bruckner has spent his whole life his whole career, his whole posthumous career, having people tell him that they knew better than he did. And sometimes, yes, he was insecure and he made some wrong-headed decisions about permitting people to persuade him to do revisions to things and whatnot. But in the main, he was a genius. He knew what he was doing. And with Symphony No. 0, he rejected it. And yes, it's a terrible piece. It really is. He didn't destroy it. That was his mistake. And for Savall to, it's sort of like virgin territory, I guess he thought, because it's a rejected symphony, neglected symphony, that he could inject his own chazarai into, his old garbage, and somehow make it worthy. It was just grotesque. So same thing with Schumann, another not symphony that he gave up working on, and that, Savall hopes to revive. And he didn't revive anything. He killed them both, even more than their composers ever could have wished. If the composers had known that this is what would have happened to their music, they would have destroyed it in advance. I'm absolutely sure of it. These performances by Savall are just shameful. They're a disgrace. They really are, to his reputation. A fine musician, a brilliant musician in many ways, a wonderful performing artist who's made fabulous recordings of early and Baroque music. But this, why isn't there someone there to just put a stop to it? And he gets funding, lots of funding. It's grotesque. Then we've got, really on similar lines, Mozart, Symphonies 39 through 41, with Ensemble Resonance and Riccardo Minassi on Harmonia Mundi. Now, these are not new releases. These have been out for a while, but I never got to them. And when I finally did get to them, I was so appalled by what I heard. This is just crude, vulgar, tasteless. It's terrible. It's bad in every possible way. It's so unidiomatic. It's so unpleasant to listen to. It's just, rough up Mozart. Take him out and, take him out behind a back alley and let him have it. And ravage him. And it doesn't work. It's just disgusting. There's no art. There's no charm. There's no wit. It's just loud and crass and obvious and played with all the wrong balances. Trumpets and drums, when they come in, just blow away everybody else. There's no balance. There's no musicality. The musicianship is just so second rate throughout those things. They're just dreadful. And last but not least, it would not be the Avoid Like Death Awards unless Simon Rattle were around to receive one. I mean, it's almost become a tradition, hasn't it? And, it bothers me because he's actually been doing rather well. He did some decent Mahler in Bavaria. He did some nice Janacek operas in London. Hasn't been uniformly dreadful. And in Berlin, he made beautiful recordings of the Dvorak tone poems, which led me to hope that maybe with the Slavonic dances, we would not be in for a trial, but we were. Oh my, and it's with the Czech Philharmonic, which has completely lost any right to be considered an idiomatic Czech music ensemble. Because between Semyon Bychkov and Simon Rattle, I mean, they're not playing Czech music anymore. I don't know what the heck they think they're doing, but it's just dreadful. And these Slavonic dances, well, you could go watch the video. I did the review of them. They sound bad. Whenever Simon Rattle has ideas, we need to run for the exits. It's just a big mistake. And so, those were pretty dreadful and shocking coming from that source, at least from an orchestra that does know how to play the music and does have a tradition in playing the music. I mean, well, so much for that. Then we've got, wait. We're done with the Scarlet Scarf of Shame. So there it goes. It's now time for one of my personal favorites, the Taupe Scarf of Turpitude. Turpitude is, in case you're wondering, is it's wickedness, evil. This is active malevolence, And, there has been some. My taupe scarf of turpitude is looking a little bit wrinkly, but nonetheless, it gets the job done. First, Bruckner Symphony No. 7 with the ORF Vienna Radio Symphony Orchestra under Marcus Poschner on Capriccio. Now, Poschner did, for the most part, an excellent complete Bruckner cycle, using all 7 billion editions of each symphony. But there's only one edition of the 7th. Only one. The only question really is whether you do the cymbal crash or not in the slow movement. But otherwise, it's one edition, and he decided to destroy the entire symphony, well, or at least the entire first movement, by doing this ridiculous accelerando thing in the coda of the first movement. The rest of the performance wasn't as bad. It was lightweight, as were most of his Bruckner performances. But that is the most glorious climax in the entire symphony. Maybe the most glorious climax that Bruckner ever wrote. It's thrilling. It should be stunning. It's supposed to be... I mean, I get why I think what he's doing, but it's the intent that makes him so malevolent. The problem with the 7th is that the ending of the first movement is so glorious that the ending of the finale, which repeats the end of the first movement, only a little bit quicker and a little bit more abridged, can't possibly match it. And so people sometimes leave thinking, that was kind of disappointing. The ending is not as great as the end of the first movement. But then again, it's a lighthearted finale. It's not a finale symphony. It's a first movement and adagio symphony. That's where the weight is. And the finale is just supposed to be sort of appropriate, not necessarily better or bigger or more transcendental. And it doesn't become better because you screw up the first movement. It's an absolutely dreadful idea and really a crime against Bruckner. That's where the turpitude comes in. So No, I'm afraid that didn't work, and it's a shame. It really is a shame because the whole cycle is, for the most part, quite good, and to do something like that is so gratuitous. It's just a knife in the gut. Ugh, ugh. Next, oh yeah, another winner. Sibelius Symphonies 6 and 7 and The Tempest excerpts with the Gothenburg Symphony Orchestra under Santu Matthias Ruvali on Alpha. Oh my, I mean, his Sibelius cycle has had its ups and downs, mostly downs. But here, this is one of those micromanaging disasters where, he has all kinds of ideas about how the music ought to be shaped and tangled and pushed and shoved, and they're almost all bad. And it's just a grotesque pair of performances. Shameful, really. And I just don't understand. Here's where Alpha comes in. We had to talk about Alpha. I did a whole video about Alpha. They've done terrific stuff. But one of the reasons Alpha appears on this list twice, and I just need to make it clear, is because I've given them great reviews of stuff for most of the second half of 2025. The first half wasn't as promising. But, they're doing tons of stuff. And there doesn't seem to be any guiding intelligence behind what they decide to do. They're just doing it and issuing it. And when you do that, you may have a bunch of hits and you may have a bunch of misses. It all seems terribly random. They're doing a Shostakovich cycle. They're doing this. They're doing that. It's just all of this stuff. Some of it's really exciting. It's exciting that they're doing anything in this particular environment. I have to give them credit for that. They're doing what big labels did for decades, and that's a noble thing and a good thing. But at the same time, there still needs to be some really serious thought put into what to release and why. Now, Ruvali is Finnish. He's got a reputation he's doing the Finnish stuff, like the Finnish people always do Finnish. It's very Finnish. But, I talk to lots of Finnish people who don't particularly care for Sibelius. Believe it or not, it happens. They may like others better. I don't know. I don't know what Ruvali's really good at. It's very much like Mäkelä. I have no idea what he's really good at. They're just doing stuff. And when that happens, it's impossible to get a fix on where their talents really lie and what's worth listening to and what isn't. I only know what's bad. If it's bad, if it's good, I'll say it's good. I have no problem with that. I root for them. I want everybody to do well, but these horrible Sibelius performances, they were just difference for its own sake. And it was wanton and it was malevolent and it was gratuitous and just disgusting. So that's that. But it is time that we get to the climax of this year's ALDA Awards, which we really do need to avoid like death. Well, this one is kind of funny. The Black Scarf of Lingering Stench. Yes, the recording, the awfulness of which will live on forever. It's going to be in the record books as one of the most horrible recordings of anything anyone ever did. It's Beethoven's Hammerklavier Sonata, coupled to the Ives Concord Sonata. Yes, there we go, the Ives Concord Sonata, featuring German quasi-soi-disant virtuoso Cristian Kelberer on piano on the Thorophon label. If this isn't a vanity production, I don't know what is, because only vanity could justify playing of this incompetence and awfulness and artistic decrepitude. Oh, wow, it was so bad. The funny thing about it, of course, is that the fact that it gets the Black Scarf of Lingering Stench, and I danced all over its tomb the first time I talked about it, encouraged everyone to rush off and go listen to it because everyone thinks, well, it can't really be that bad. And then the comments I got back were marvelous. Most of them were, yes, it really is that bad. Actually, Kalberer actually wrote to me a comment of typically somewhat incoherent thought, or whatever thought went into it. It was sort of, he was somehow talking about what a genius he was, and and how this is only giving him, attention, which it does. I mean, I have no problem giving him attention. I will hold him up to ridicule before the largest possible gathering of music lovers and others. And there will always be some who admire the result. There always are. My mother, who you've met on this channel, she pops up periodically, was a wonderful, wonderful high school teacher for many years in the public school system. And she taught a class in women's history, which she felt was really important because she told me at the time, especially in the public school system, that there were so many young girls who just had no self-respect. She wanted them to start to feel, a part of something bigger than themselves, something that really mattered, and that they could be proud of, because so many girls, in her experience, were just being abused by their boyfriends, and they felt that if they didn't have a boyfriend, they were worthless. And in high school, kids are mean. We all know that, right? So she taught this course, and when she came home one day and she said to me, she said, there is absolutely no guy in this entire student body who is so disgusting that he can't find a girlfriend who has so little self-respect that she will not, she feels that she needs to go out with this scuzzbag of a guy. And she was, very depressed about it. And she's right. And it's just as true when it comes to the Hammerklavier Sonata by Cristian. There is no artist who is so incompetent, whose interpretation is so tasteless and vulgar, whose ideas are so low grade, that there will not be some sort of music lover who will find some sort of additional self-esteem in going to bat for this loser of a pianist and his horrendous performance of the Hammerklavier Sonata. The Ives Concord Sonata in there is just as bad, but I mean, we don't even get to that. That's a whole nother issue, because you can pound on the piano with your forehead and claim it's the Concord Sonata, and most people won't know the difference. But the Hammerklavier, well, that's something else entirely, isn't it? Actually, the coupling is an interesting one. Could be. If we had a pianist who was up to the task of playing both works. But, was this bad? In fact, this is so bad, this performance. It gets not only the black scarf of lingering stench, but the taupe scarf of turpitude, and the scarlet scarf of shame, and the white scarf of irredeemable chutzpah. It is the quadruple scarf extravaganza bonus winner for this year. Simply an atrocity in every possible way. So I hope you all enjoyed listening to it, and maybe many others will too. It's fine with me. It's a lot of fun to listen to terrible performances. Let's just all agree about how bad they really are. So there you have it, my friends, the Avoid Like Death Awards for 2025. I am so looking forward to 2026. Keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me this year, and I look forward to the next. Take care.